All right. Well, welcome everyone. It is almost race week for the Chicago Triathlon. The excitement is building. We have a lot going on already and a lot coming up as we head into race week. I know there's a lot of nervous energy, there's a lot of excited people. But this really is, or next week really is one of my favorite weeks of the year in Chicago. For those of you who are first timers, this might be your very first triathlon experience, of course. And it is the world's largest triathlon, or one of the world's largest triathlons. So it is an epic adventure that you're all undertaking and a very fun adventure. There are very few experiences in the whole world that have this many triathletes all going through swimming, biking, and running together on one day, especially in a big urban city like Chicago. So I personally want to welcome you all to Chicago. I am Coach Chris, so I'm the community manager for Super Tri. I live right downtown in Chicago, about a block away from Transition. And I've been at the race for over 20 years straight as an athlete, a coach, a little bit of everything in between. So I hope to give you some of my insights as an insider to the one of the world's largest triathlons. Um, this is formally our first timers program. So this is a program for anyone who is a first timer, whether it's to Chicago or to triathlon in general. And we are doing our final clinic now. We've gone through the series. If you missed any of the prior videos, those are recorded. The prior seminars are all recorded and posted on the Live Grit Soars website, the First Timers Program page. We've got the QR code here that you can actually scan if you want to go and find these different talks. We covered Triathlon 101, we covered the swim, the bike, the run, transitions, a little bit of everything. And now we're finally covering your race preparation. So race week information in particular. If you aren't dialed into all of our resources, we have kind of three main resources for the First Timers program. One is a Facebook group. That's where you can post questions. It's really a community resource. You can have other people help answer questions, but we have official coaches and staff that are answering questions in that Facebook group. It gets very active as we head into race week. So feel free to support each other, get each other excited, and help answer each other's questions in there. We also have the Live Grit Soars website. There's a first timers program page on Live Grit Soars website where you can find all the prior recordings and information that I just mentioned that we already had recorded earlier this year. And then new this year, we also have a Strava club. It is now an official verified Strava club. This just started recently this summer, so it's a relatively new resource, but we're posting all community events and kind of some fun information, fun events, extra stuff that's going on locally in that Strava group. So we highly encourage you to join that Strava group as well. You can get a lot of answers in there. We'll post information like we do on other social media channels, but we also have links and RSVPs to some fun new events that are happening this year as well. So encourage you to join that Strava group as well as another place to find information. Now, if you're not familiar with Live Grit Soars, the Gillian Feely, the owner, she is not here today. She had some family obligations, so I'm filling in for her. But she runs a fantastic organization. You can follow them on social media. You can donate to them. They support Chicago's youth in developing mental and physical strength through the sport of triathlon. They do all these fun clinics. They're actually doing a mock triathlon for some of their kids this weekend to get them ready for the Chicago Triathlon. It's a wonderful program. If you ever get the chance, if you're in Chicago, volunteer or donate with this group. It's really a rewarding experience. I helped coach some of them last summer with some swim clinics. So definitely give them their support. Or if you see some Live Grit Soars jerseys out there on race weekend, hand out some high fives to let them celebrate becoming triathletes alongside all of us first timers. So we're all part of one big community. All right, so now we're going to dig into the fun stuff, race day preparation. So race week is here, almost. The nervous energy is building a little bit, and that's completely normal. But there's a lot of things that you can do to make your race day experience fun and also less nerve wracking. So we're going to cover a few different details, but in general, these are the main tips that I recommend for really getting ready for race day. One, first and foremost, if you have a question, 9 times out of 10, the answer is always going to be, did you read the athlete guide? So we just posted it. The athlete guide actually gets actively updated. So sometimes if there was a typo or something like that, or something with the schedule changes, you'll see that actually get actively updated. So you can go to the websites to find that. I'll cover that more in a minute. Um, the other big thing is the expo. It's one of the world's largest health and fitness expos. That's where you'll go to get your packet pickup. So planning your logistics, your travel to get down to the Hilton Hotel where the expo is, enjoying that expo experience, and then planning your weekend really does help make race day easier. So don't leave things to the last minute. Look over the athlete guide and the schedule. The other thing, if you haven't already, look over the course maps. You want to know where you're going to be swimming, biking, and running. It's always the athlete's responsibility to know the course. So make sure you review the course maps that are on the website. We're actually posting new Strava courses, so you can actually zoom in and kind of see the details of some of the routes a little bit better that way. Um, and one of the biggest things that usually is nerve-wracking is the swim. So one of my biggest tips is to have a fun swim mantra, something at the swim start that you can tell yourself so that you're smiling, you're having fun. We'll cover that in a little more detail as well. I also recommend plan some downtime. It's a busy weekend. There's a lot of activity going on. So if you can plan out your weekend and plan some time to just put your feet up and lay down, chill out. You don't need to cram in last minute workouts. You've done the training, you are ready. So just make sure you plan your weekend accordingly. And my favorite one, just smile. If you're having a rough day, if you're a little stressed, just smiling really does help to ease a lot of that nervous energy. It gets you excited. You can really turn your mood around sometimes just by smiling. So make sure you give that a whirl, give out some positive energy across to your fellow participants. All right. So we're going into race week. There are a lot of questions I know, especially about the swim. If you are local to Chicago, what I recommend is if you can, if you haven't already, sign up for our final swim clinic at openwaterswimchicago.com. That will sell out. So if you are not signed up already, definitely make sure you sign up for that. It's Tuesday afternoon and evening. We are also doing an early course briefing afterwards. So the clinics start at 4 o'clock, 5:15, 6:30. They go all through the evening and afternoon and early evening. And then we do a course briefing right at sunset at 8 p.m., where we'll answer all the detailed questions. So I see already people are posting a few questions with what time the swim waves start, et cetera, et cetera. Are wetsuits allowed? All that will be covered in the course briefings, which are mandatory. So you can either attend it at the expo or you can get the early opportunity on Tuesday. Wednesday, we also have some early packet pickup opportunities for our corporate challenge participants. So if you're in the corporate challenge, be sure to check that out. That's a special program that supports the Lurie Children's Hospital in downtown Chicago. Thursday is usually the time to get in some final workouts. If you are going to get in one more workout, if you're local in Chicago, there's a big triathlon community called Chicago Tri Club. They do a final event called Stroke and Stride. We do a little mass swim start together down at Ohio Street Beach. So that's a fun event if you want to join in for that. Not an official Chicago Tri event, but something that some of the local tri clubs do. And there'll be a lot of groups usually on Thursday evening is a popular final swim time in Chicago. You cannot pick up your packet on Tuesday. I saw that in the question. The packet pickup begins at the expo on Friday. So Friday is the first day of the expo, opens up at about 1 o'clock typically. There are a couple other events around that taking place that weekend. So you can join in on those as well. This is a quick video that you might be able to see some little highlights from. This is the open water swim clinics down at Ohio Street Beach. So take advantage of that Tuesday opportunity. And then on Friday, we're actually going to be doing a lunch event where we know a lot of people go down the beach to get a final swim in on Friday. So this year we're doing a gear check down there at Cafe Oliva, the restaurant that's down there. So you can come down, have lunch, get a final swim in. And you can actually RSVP for that event. So these are two new events that are happening this year. The first is on Friday, the meet and greet Triathlon Community Social. This is a gear check opportunity at Cafe Oliva. You can get a final swim in. You can come ask questions. We'll have a bunch of staff there. We might be raffling off some prizes. So come on down on Friday from 11:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. for that. And then we're also hosting, and this was just announced recently, so this is kind of new for some folks. We have a special limited capacity event, an evening with Podium Racing, one of the Super Tri Pro teams, and we're going to be doing a shakeout run. I'll be down there. I'll help lead that shakeout run. We'll be jogging from the Hilton Hotel to the swim start, the transition area, and back to give you a little preview of where you'll be going on race weekend, especially for the sprint and the Olympic distance races. So feel free to RSVP to either of those events. That is now open, but they are limited capacity events. So make sure you do RSVP for those two events if you want to join in on Friday. All right. So as I mentioned already, the thing you'll hear me say several times is read the athlete guide. It actually just got updated. So version 2.0 got posted. Um, there's a lot of detail in there. It answers pretty much all your questions. Everything you're probably going to ask is probably answered in there. I know it's a lengthy document, but it's good to read it cover to cover. One other thing I also stress for first timers to really know is the rules of triathlon. And if you're not familiar, usatriathlon.org is the website for the governing body of the sport, and they set out a lot of the different rules, knowing about wetsuits, knowing about equipment, all the nitty gritty details. They have a very simplified version of the rules on this website right here, where it'll list the most common violated rules. So if you're not familiar with that, make sure you check that out. Knowing the rules will make you feel a lot calmer rather than waiting at the last minute and finding out, oh no, I can't use headphones, or I can't have glass bottles. Knowing those little details is important. So know that you can't use your cell phone, you can't take selfies during an event. There's a safety concern with the swim, the bike, and the run. So make sure you know the rules and know the course and know the athlete guide. So be sure check those out if you have not already. So the expo runs Friday and Saturday. It's on Michigan Avenue, downtown. It's actually just a block away from the Finish Festival and 2 blocks away from the swim start. So it's very, very close in proximity to pretty much all the major events on Sunday, at least. Uh, when you do go to get your packet pickup, make sure you do have to pick up your own packet pickup. Relay teams, you have to go together. You have to have each person there. You do need to bring a photo ID. To speed up the check-in process, if you haven't already checked your active.com, your registration account, make sure you have your confirmation. There'll be a little QR code that you can generate. You can go to myevents.active.com to have that ready. If you're a USAT member, you can get your USAT membership card. Most of that's pretty streamlined these days, but if you do want your USAT membership card, you can actually get a digital copy by going to the usatriathlon.org website. Or if you're not a USA Triathlon member, you can become one for some added perks as well. The expo, as you can see here, runs from 1 to 7 p.m. There are course briefings that run every 30 minutes. So when you first go to the expo, you'll have to go into a kind of a big hall room, a conference room, where we do these talks. We cover all the details you need to know for race day in these 30-minute talks. Then you'll get a little token, and then you go get your packet pickup. New this year, as I mentioned, we have a shakeout run happening, and after that will be a little talk with the Podium Racing team. But the expo formally runs from 1 to 7 p.m. with that added bonus event at the very end of the evening. So athlete check-in steps, you go in, you bring your QR code, you go sit through these talks. So you can see here the schedule of the talks. The first one's actually going to be at 12:30, right before the expo opens on Friday. And every 30 minutes, we'll have them in alternating rooms. You go in, you listen to the talk, you can answer questions, and then you go and pick up your packet. So after you go through that, then you can go pick up your packet. If you come to the Tuesday talk, you can actually get your token early, and then you can get into the packet pickup right away. You can skip the course talk if you've already attended a course talk elsewhere. And no, if you paid the 1-day permit fee, you do not need to bring your USAT membership card. We'll already have that in your registration. So most of the time now, these days at most triathlons, we already have your USAT membership information from when you signed up for the race. A lot of triathlons do require you to show that membership card. So just be sure you have that handy just in case. You'll then go and pick up your swim cap, a t-shirt, and your timing chip strap. So you'll go through kind of the whole packet pickup process, get all the items. If you want to double check, these are the items you want to make sure you have. There'll be stickers for your bike as well, a bib for the run, and the timing chip is the most important piece. You don't want to lose that. So make sure you keep that handy. Make sure that's the first thing I put on the morning on race day when I get out of bed. So make sure you have that handy. All right, so what's in the packet? Like I mentioned, you'll pick up a T-shirt. You'll get a wristband, and the wristband you need to have on to get in and out of transition. That's how we keep everything secure in the transition area. You'll get a swim cap. You'll get a helmet sticker and a bike sticker, so that your bike and your helmet will be identified as your own, so you don't misplace those, you don't get a mix up, but also for race photos. So make sure that the numbers are always visible. On the run, you'll get a bib. You have to wear that bib on the front. One item that is new for some folks is just like a running event where you pin a bib onto your shirt. In triathlon, you don't need to have that bib on the swim and the bike. You just need it on the run. So a lot of people will get an elastic race belt and put that bib on a race belt, and that'll just be something that you'll put on in transition. So that might be one new item that you might want to look at getting at the expo. There'll be a lot of vendors that have race belts. That's usually one new item for some folks. But the chip we recommend wearing on your left leg, because the right side of your bike has your gearing, and you don't want the chip to get caught in any of the gearing of your bike. So wear it on your left leg ideally. And the bike number you can put anywhere on the frame, so on the top tube or off the back of the bike as well. All right, if you're doing the super sprint, one important thing to know, the super sprint race on Saturday is at a whole different location. It's about 6 miles north of downtown Chicago at Foster Avenue Beach. So those of you doing the triple challenge, make sure you know that it is on a different location. Every year we get people who come downtown thinking the super sprint race is downtown. It is not. It's up on the north side at Foster Avenue Beach. So make sure you know the venue for the race that you're doing. With the super sprint, you can pick up your packet on Friday at the expo downtown, or you can pick it up on race morning. However, I recommend getting there very, very early if you are going to pick up your packet at the super sprint race. So it does get busy on the morning of the super sprint. There's a kids race that goes on first, and then the transition area reopens at 9 a.m. And so the adults can go back into transition at that time to set up their area, and then the adult race starts after that. So the super sprint race formally for the adults starts at 10 a.m. So the junior kids race at 7 a.m., the senior kids race at 8 a.m., and the adults race at 10 a.m. There will be a briefing shortly before the start of each race. So very just quick informational overview before you start your race. So you'll have the announcer walking you through any kind of pertinent information for race day in case there are any changes or whatnot, or just some good tips for the swim, bike, and the run course. So make sure you are there and lined up and ready 15 minutes before the official start of the race. I generally recommend get there as early as you can. It always makes it easier. Um, and yeah, I see a couple of questions being posted. I'll answer a few more questions at the very end. Um, and then, so that's the super sprint race on Saturday morning. Now, also on Saturday, taking place pretty much at the same time, we have the expo going on, and we have other events happening downtown in the afternoon. So in the afternoon, really the expo starting at 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. There is also the optional early bike check-in for the Sunday races for the sprint and the Olympic distance. And you don't have to do this, but you can go and put your bikes into transition. They will be secured overnight. There's security that in its fenced in area. People like to drop their bike off the day before, because then it makes the logistics sometimes a little bit easier on race morning. If you don't have to drive down with a bike or whatnot, you can just take public transportation or get dropped off. So dropping the bike off early is good for logistics, but also you can pick your spot in transition on your rack. So you can get kind of like the preferred rack spot in transition at the end of your waves rack. So that's something to make sure that you take advantage of if you want to. But new this year, the big thing is the Super Tri Pro race. The Olympic athletes, the professional athletes, they will be racing on Saturday afternoon. Last year it was on Sunday afternoon. This year it's on Saturday afternoon. You don't want to miss this. It's a lot of fun. The event is really from 1 to 5 p.m., but the races will be starting at 2 p.m. for the women and then about 3:20 p.m. for the men. It's broadcast on TV. You can register for tickets. There's a bunch of raffle giveaway packages that you can sign up for as well. It's just a fun way to start your race weekend if you're racing on Sunday, or a fun way to wrap up if you raced on Saturday morning. You can come on down and check out the venue. You can check out where the swim start is. You can walk through the transition area, see where you have to, where you can drop off your bike, and then watch the pro race. So plan your logistics beforehand, and if you can, incorporate in spectating that pro race. All right. I see someone asking a question about a run in the chat. I don't think there's a run only event, so I don't know if that question is something specific about the relay teams, but feel free to post questions in the chat here. I wanted to point out too, this is kind of helpful for visualizing race day, looking at the course maps on the website and the athlete guide. You can see the details. This is kind of a zoomed in part of the transition area. So, if you look at the overall course for the Sunday races, you start in the middle of downtown. The sprint swims north, the Olympic swims south and then north, and then you run. It's about a quarter-mile run, so it's a good little run into transition. And this is what the transition area will look like on race day. There'll be a relay pen. So if you're doing the relay event where you have a swimmer, a biker, and a runner all doing one triathlon together, there'll be an area for the relay teammates to hang out. You can see where the swim in is. You can see where the first timers racks are going to be, some of the first racks right when you come into transition. Let me jump back here. The whole transition area is on a little bit of a hill, so it kind of goes uphill towards Lakeshore Drive. There is a medical tent in here. The unlimited biking rentals crew is there. There's toilets in transition if you need it. There's a water table in transition. The triple challenge participants will be up on the upper part of transition, and you'll see where the bike out is at the very north end of transition. There'll also be a little bike support from BFF Bikes in here. And you'll notice the sprint transition area is separated from the international because you can actually do a later check-in for the sprint distance. So be sure to check over the athlete guide, but just visualizing, where you come in, where you run out, where you come back in from the bike, and where you go back out on the run really does help to make race day a little bit easier. Think about what it's going to look like, think about the flow, look at if you want, I sometimes zoom in on Google Maps and take a look at things in more detail. That just helps you to feel calmer on race day. If you know where everything is ahead of time, even if it's just a rough approximation, that's going to make your race morning that much easier. Not going to go through the full kind of course briefing details of kind of when everything starts and finishes, but I did want to highlight a couple things I know we get a lot of questions about, especially for our first timers. The swim cutoff, I know for people doing the sprint, I get nervous about that because the sprint is the second event of the day on Sunday. The cutoff is 30 minutes after the last sprint wave. And I wouldn't worry about this. 99.9% of athletes finish the swim within the cutoff time. It is a generous swim cutoff time. For the Olympic, it's about 60 minutes. But again, the cutoff times are based on the last wave. And for the sprint, the last wave is actually the triple challenge. So you get an extra buffer time, essentially. The race is very accommodating for first timers. They do everything that we can to make the race an easier experience. I know we have one question here about the swim. If you watch our swim talk, I'll give a whole bunch of tips. We already recorded that video, but there is not a warm-up area, unfortunately, on the Sunday race. There are tables with water, and I recommend splashing on your face and on your skin to kind of get your body feeling the colder water against your skin to help minimize the shock. but the swim start now is actually a pretty casual swim start. And you just step in. I'll show some photos here in a second on that. Now, the bike course does have a cutoff time. There is actually, oops, it might be a typo here, 11:45 a.m. Usually, we have to reopen or give Lakeshore Drive back to the city of Chicago um, around noon. So the cutoff time for the bike is about 11:45. Again, it's a very generous cutoff time. Most people don't have to worry about not making cutoff times at Chicago Tri. And then when you come in from the bike, there is about 15 minutes. You need to get onto the run course by noon, and then the total course finish time is 2 p.m. That's when the whole race kind of wraps up. The finish festival closes around that time. But again, it's a very generous time, and like we said, most everyone has plenty of time to finish at the Chicago Tri. It's not like some other triathlons that have much stricter cutoff times. All right, now let's look at logistics. So race morning, a lot of people wonder like, how do I get there and where do I go and where do I park? There is a parking map in the athlete guide. So be sure to check that out if you're driving down in the morning. Some people actually ride their bikes down in the morning too. You can come down off of the lakefront bike path coming from the north end. And there is a late entry point for the sprint distance. There's also the easier paths are taking Upper Randolph Street, and there's a couple of routes through Grant Park or through the Lakeshore East Park or the Middle Randolph Street area. But typically, the easier way is just to come down Monroe, I would say, and that way you can kind of see and walk right into the south end of transition. That's the more popular option in the morning. Or if you're coming from the south on the Lakefront Trail, you just follow the Lakefront Trail and it leads you right into transition. So you can look over the athlete guide for more details on that. One thing I did want to point out, we are going to have a first timers area, a special tent on race morning. This is on the area known as Queen's Landing. This is actually where the Super Tri Pro race will be taking place on Saturday. And then on Sunday, we convert one of the tents to a first timers area. So in the morning, after you go to transition, you start walking down to the swim start and you can stop by this little tent area. You can hang out here. You can have it be a reunite area with your friends and family if you want. Um, and this is just a nice area to congregate before the race if you just want a place to hang out while you wait for your swim start. And then you'll continue walking a little bit further south on the lakefront here. So if you look at the orientation, north here is to the left, east is pointing up, and Buckingham Fountain is just down here on the bottom of the page. And so as you continue walking down here, you'll come to, this is a blown up detailed part of the actual swim start area. So the swim start is right on the lakefront where Balbo Street hits the lake. If you're doing the sprint, you enter in this swim start area, corral, and you swim north. If you're doing the Olympic distance, you swim south first and then you swim north. There is a gear check area. I know some people are posting questions about this. You can drop off a bag right before you start your race. So typically, if you want to think about and visualize the race morning logistics, you go to transition, you set up all your equipment next to your bike, and then you walk down to the swim start. Now, one thing people sometimes don't think about is you're going to be leaving your running shoes next to your bike and equipment in transition, and then you have to walk down to the swim start. So a lot of people will bring either a second pair of shoes or flip-flops, maybe a warm layer, maybe some drinks, snacks, maybe their cell phone, and you'll put all that in a second bag that you can give to our gear check crew, and they will then take it from this swim start area and they transport it about a block away to the finish festival. So as soon as you finish, you can get access to those items again. Not a lot of triathlons offer this kind of secondary gear check option. So it's a really nice perk to have it. You don't have to use it, but it's there if you want to. If you have friends or family, sometimes you'll just give your items, any flip flops or whatnot, to your family members and they'll hold on to it. So whatever's easier for you. If you're part of a tri club or a charity team, we also have a tri club and charity team area. So this is where a lot of our athletes will congregate. If you're doing the triple challenge or if you have a VIP pass, there's also an area right across from the swim start where you can hang out and kind of wait until your wave start time. And then I recommend at least about 20 minutes before your scheduled start time, You'll walk in over here, line into the swim start area, and wave by wave, you'll see the signs for each wave. You'll go in, and then you'll line up, and you'll go in several athletes at a time. So now we're getting to the actual race, right? Visualizing race day. So we talked about looking over everything, right? Looking at the schedule, looking at the course maps, writing out maybe a little morning schedule for yourself, thinking about, what are you going to do? And how are you going to coordinate things. I also recommend, as part of that morning routine, maybe talk to friends and family. I see people asking a question here about, can friends and family track you during the race? Yes, there's a results tracking link. I wouldn't recommend necessarily wearing an air tag on yourself, because you're going in the water, and they, while they're water resistant, they're not always waterproof, and they may not work that well. So you don't have to worry about that. Um, then when you get into the swim, you can actually see here on this photo what the swim start looks like. There's actually, we build steps into the water. So you actually walk down a couple steps. And then once your feet are, about one step or two into the water, you just take a step off. You'll actually see one person here diving head first, which we do not recommend. We actually want you just stepping in. It's very casual that way. And then you just start swimming. And the Olympic distance goes south here towards the museum campus area, turns around and goes north. If you're doing the sprint, you just go north. But one thing I recommend is just thinking about that swim. What are you going to focus on? Do you have a mantra, maybe a little phrase, a saying, or something on your swim technique to focus on? I like to think long and strong, to have a nice long reach and a nice strong finish to your stroke. Don't rush your strokes. Start slow, start easy. Um, when you get to transition too, think about, what are you doing in transition? Visualize that. I even recommend practicing that ahead of time. Put your gear together just like race day, and just go through the motions of putting the shoes on, putting the helmet on. Um, One of my favorite mantras for transition is sock, shoe, glasses, helmet, go. That's all you need to be doing in transition. Put your sock on, put your shoe on, put your other sock on, your other shoe on, put your glasses on, put your helmet on, and then go. So that's for T1, that first transition. So just going through those motions, visualizing that, thinking about that can help make race day a lot easier. Just keep it simple. Um, and then for the bike course, make sure you look over the bike course, know where the turnaround points are, know the directions. I might actually be posting a little video of parts of the course in our Facebook group, so stay tuned for that. And then when you get on the run course, make sure you know the run course, the difference between sprint, Olympic, super sprint, know where the turnaround points are. Think about each mile marker, maybe look at the map and see where the aid stations are, and just visualize it. It really helps to calm the nerves when you kind of have at least once thought through the race start to finish. And then you hit the finish line, which is a very unique finish line. Most running events have these big finish lines where hundreds or dozens of people finish at the same time. In triathlon, it's much more spread out. Sometimes you'll get the announcer announcing you personally when you come across the finish line, which is pretty cool, and some great photos. And relay teams, new this year, your relay teammates will have an extra entry point where they can come in and go down the finish chute with you for a team photo crossing the finish line together. So if you're the swimmer or cyclist, while your runner is out on the course, you can mosey on down at a casual pace to the finish line, wait for them, and then jump into the finish line. So that's something new we're doing this year. Also, the Finish Fest is a party unto itself. There's music, there's drinks, there's food, there's sponsors and vendors. So it's fun just to hang out afterwards, cheer other people on. And if you want to make the most of having a good race day, just remember to smile. Smile for the photos, pass on that positive energy to other people around you, and you'll get that energy back twice, twofold or tenfold. So definitely make sure you take advantage of that. I see a question here about the swim and visualizing that. Yeah, so the swim, and here's another photo. As you go into the swim, you take a nice casual couple steps in. Like I mentioned, start slow and then think about sighting. Are you going to be looking at buoys? Are you going to be looking at landmarks? Typically, looking at a landmark further in the horizon is the easiest way to sight. That's a more stationary object. So if you're doing the Olympic distance, you're swimming south towards the museum campus. I usually sight against the Field Museum building, and just kind of use that guideline. And then when I turn around, I use Lake Point Tower, some of the high rises in the horizon to sight on the way back. But it's a very simple course. You're right along the shoreline the whole way. You're not going to get lost. There's lots of lifeguards and rowboats, like you can see up here. They, if you start going off course, they'll guide you in the right direction. And you are allowed to swim up to a boat and hold on. So if you're a nervous swimmer, swallowed some water, just need to stop for a couple minutes, you can hold on, just let the lifeguard know, hey, I just need to catch my breath, and you can continue on. We've had people swim from boat to boat sometimes, and that's fine to do. So whatever support you need, it's one of the most well supported races in the world. Um, for mantras, like I mentioned, that long and strong mantra, if you've done the catch up stroke, that drill sometimes people do in the pool, that's a great way to keep the heart rate down. Take a one stroke at a time, long gliding strokes. Also, just focusing on breathing. Sometimes people just don't exhale enough or inhale enough. Make sure you're not just holding your breath the whole time when you're swimming. Just breathe. Get a nice big exhale. Get a nice big inhale. You'll be fine. And yeah, I see a question here about the super sprint as well. So I'm talking a little bit more about the sprint Olympic, but super sprint, same thing. There are lifeguard boats out there as well. Sometimes there are kayaks and stand-up paddle boards as well. And you can swim along them. You can just let them know, hey, I just need to catch my breath. Hold on for a couple of seconds and then continue on. Um, so visualize that. If you're someone who's a nervous swimmer, take the time just to, plan out, visualize race day, think about, what am I going to do if something happens? I swallow a little water, I bump into somebody. Having that plan be walked through in your head already really does help to keep you nice and calm on race day. Here another couple other photos. I know the swim start is what people always have questions about. Again, you're just stepping in casually and then starting your swim, and it'll be about 5 to 8 people at a time walking down these bleacher steps every 5 to 10 seconds. So you step in and then you swim. And if you want to start slow. You can just swim off to the side, take your time. You don't have to have that massed swim start that some races have. You can take a much more casual approach as a first timer. All right. Once you finish that swim, you run into transition, and you get onto the bike leg. So the bike leg is very unique. You get to bike on Lakeshore Drive, which is never open to cycling, other than one other event, Bike the Drive in Chicago. If you're doing the sprint distance, you're just doing a out and back on Lakeshore Drive, going north and back. One thing that they'll cover in the course briefing is the for the rules of passing. Make sure you know that you have to stay to the side and pass around people. And in triathlon, usually you ride on the right and you pass on the left, just like cars and rules of the road on the highway. But with the sprint, the way it is set up, you're actually going to ride on the left and pass on the right. That was changed a number of years ago. And if this ever changes, just that's why we want you going to the course briefing, is to know the rules of the road for the race. And the unique thing about the Chicago Tri, if you're doing the Olympic distance, in the second half of the race, when you go down to lower whacker, then you do switch back to normal rules of the road at most other US triathlons where you ride on the right and then pass on the left. And there will be signs, but make sure you are familiar with that part of the course and you know what to expect. So we call it Australian rules on the sprint, or UK rules riding on the other side of the road. And then you go to regular US rules for the second half of the Olympic. One of my favorite tips for the bike, if you're someone who's not a great runner, or you just want to be able to execute a really good run in triathlon, your legs are going to be a little heavy if you mash your pedals and don't use all your gears. So, in the final mile of your bike, make sure you go into an easy gear and spin your legs at a nice high cadence. So, you're getting your legs used to how you want them to operate when you get off the bike and start running. So, make sure you shift into an easy gear towards the end of the bike on that final mile. On the sprint distance, you actually are going over the Chicago River Bridge, so it's actually a pretty good climb at the end of the bike. So make sure your bike is in working order. Shift through all your gears. Use every gear that you have if that hill is a little challenging, or if there's a strong headwind. Um, and yeah, yes, a question about the bike. Yeah, if you're not a super strong cyclist, you're basically going to stay towards the left-hand side on the sprint distance pretty much the whole time, and you only move to the right if you have to pass somebody. And no, you don't need to lock your bikes in transition. It's a secure transition area. They check everyone's wristband, so they only take your own bike in and out. And if you lock your bike and then, have trouble finding the key or something like that, you don't want to have issues like there are mile markers on the course. I don't know if we have them actually all on the bike course, but on the run course, you'll see the signs. But one new thing here, as you can see on the right hand side of the screen, we're doing a new thing called Super Tri segments. So a part of the bike course, a part of the run course are going to have segments, 4 kilometers on the bike and about a mile on the run, that are going to match the Super Tri distances that the pros do. And you'll have a separate time segment for those. So be sure to check that out. That's something new that'll be on course this year. Um, and no, your bike does not need to have a kickstand. We have bike racks where you mount your bike by the nose of your saddle. So that's a good question as well for the bike. All right. Now we're getting onto the run, right? We want to visualize you're now finishing the bike, you're getting through your T2 transition. And actually, for that transition, one thing I recommend on race morning or when you drop your bike off to help with the visualization process, walk through the route of transition you plan to do on race day. Like go to the what we call the bike in area, walk to your rack position, and then from your rack position to the run out. And just visualize that path because one thing a lot of first timers neglect to think about is when you're out on the bike course, you've got all your equipment on you, your bike, your helmet, all that, and then you come back into transition and you need to put your bike back to where you had it. But it's a big transition area. There's a lot of people. So how do you know where your spot is if the only item that might be there might be your race belt or running shoes? And it's not uncommon to see first timers running up and down each aisle, forgetting their wave number or forgetting where they put their running shoes. So it does help to just walk through that when you either do the early bike drop off or in race morning, just walk each of the routes and visualize from start to finish the direction that you're going to be going. It just makes it a little bit easier. I usually look at landmarks like trees and bushes and kind of get a point of reference. The racks are labeled by wave, so it is pretty straightforward, but it just helps to walk through it. And then once you get out onto the run course, we do have aid stations out there. We actually this year the sponsor is the feed, so there'll be multiple gels in addition to water and Gatorade at all the aid stations. So if you want to grab some on course fuel, some sports gels, those will be out there. You can also plan if you want to visualize or you have friends and family coming out to spectate. Maybe plan ahead of time with them and say, hey, if you're going to spectate, be on the left hand side down here at the near the swim start area. This photo here on the right is actually about 3/4 of a mile into the run. It's right as you run past the charity and club area. So that's a popular area for spectators to come out, give high fives, and cheer people on. And spectators can then just walk a block over to get to the finish festival while you're still out on the run course. So staying near the swim start is great for spectators as well. And then you finish the run and you come down the home stretch on Columbus Avenue. It's the same, actually, pretty much the same spot as the Chicago Marathon finish line. It's a big open road. It's an epic finish. You are coming down usually just one or two athletes at a time. So you kind of feel like you have a much more personalized finish line experience in a triathlon. I know we had people asking questions about, how can you track your athletes? How can friends and family track you? There is a live athlete tracking link. It's in the athlete guide, like everything else. And you can have them get updates. So as you're actively doing the race, the splits will update and they can kind of know roughly where you are and kind of where, when you might finish for tracking purposes. So be sure to share that information ahead of time with friends and family. Let them know your bib number. After you pick up your packet, that's always a good time to snap a picture of your photo, share the QR code, or share the link with friends and family. All right, so a couple more tips for race week. If you really want to have a good experience, you're here, you're listening to this talk, so you're definitely planning ahead, which is great. Some people don't spend as much time planning everything ahead of time. Um, and these are a couple extra things. So one, make sure you're hydrating a lot. Sometimes if you're on your feet, you're running around, going to the expo, doing things, you forget to do some of the basic things like hydrating and staying hydrated and well fueled. So make sure you're hydrating well all week. Make sure you're sleeping well all week as well. Typically, it also helps to eat what we call as simple meals, like something that's easy to digest. If you have a nervous stomach, especially, keep your meals normal. Do what worked for you in training. Don't change things up. But if you do want to plan, the night before, if you're staying at a hotel or whatnot, maybe go and find a restaurant, make a reservation ahead of time, make it an early reservation, so that you can have that meal that you want. And the simpler you keep it, the better. Sometimes I like to just get my own quick meal, go to a Chipotle or something, something consistent, something you've had before. Let your friends and family go out to a fancy dinner if they want to go out later. You can always have a nice celebratory dinner with them after the race too. So whatever works for you, just plan that out. And then check over your gear. Check it once, check it twice. Write out a list. Use those triathlon checklists. We actually have some that we'll share as well. But make sure your bike, most importantly, is in working order. Most local bike shops get slammed the week before the race. So if you need a tune-up or whatnot, go get that done this weekend. Call the bike shop ahead of time. So a lot of places will do it by appointment in Chicago, rather than just walking up and expecting them to be able to service it right then and there. So you do want to plan that ahead of time as much as you can. And then what I'd recommend actually this weekend, the week before the race, do all your gear packing. Pack your bags just like you would for race day the week ahead of time and put things out. I like to put mine in actually big Ziploc bags, and I write on the bag what items I want in each bag. And then on race morning, I just come down and I plop down my two bags and I'm good to go. Even if it rains, I've got all my items in a nice waterproof Ziploc baggie. So there's a lot of good fun tips like that. Um, we did a whole talk on transitions as well, so you can see more tips on gear packing and kind of the equipment and all that, from that prior video that we recorded. We also have some of our coaches and Joy, who I think helped present on our run talk. She and I, another coach, are on the Try 312 YouTube channel. We do little videos with tips. We did a whole one on race week as well, with checklists and all that good stuff. So check out those resources. USA Triathlon is also a great website resource for that as well. But most importantly, just know that, race day, while you might feel a little nervous about it and, will you be able to finish it and all that? Trust me, you will. You've done the training, you probably signed up, hopefully a little earlier. We still have some people signing up here, as events are getting filled up. But, race day is really just a victory lap. You've done the training, you've gained fitness, you've done swimming, you've done biking, you've done running numerous times in training. Now it's just time to go and have that victory lap. So enjoy the victory lap. Um, all right. So if you do have questions, and there will be a lot of questions, I know there always are, you'll get a lot of them answered just by reading the athlete guide. You'll get a lot of them answered by going to the course briefing. So don't worry about a lot of the nitty gritties, until now, or until race week. For now, just focus on getting your gear together, packing your bags, looking over the course maps, do all those little tips that we mentioned. The first link here, the Facebook group, is really where you can post a lot of questions. If you missed a link, I saw someone asking about the rules. We're going to be posting a lot of those details and answering a lot of questions in there. So if there's something that pops in your head, there are no stupid questions. Ask any and every question. Um, or rewatch the videos that we recorded, right? We've had 6 webinars already. That's 6 hours of content and tips. If you want to put your feet up and just watch one of those videos each day of the week as you go into race week, that can be a great way, to get some final tips for race day. And you can find all those videos on the Live Grit website. We also have that Try 312 channel that Joy, myself, and a couple other coaches have been putting some content on. And then the official Super Tri Chicago Triathlon Strava Club is where you'll find even more, another place basically to post if you aren't on Facebook or whatnot and you want a place to post questions. There's a whole chat in that group. There's a bunch of events that we are posting in there as well. So feel free to ask questions in that group. But here are our email addresses if you want to reach out to anyone. Gillian, who manages the First Timers program, myself, Coach Chris, Jillian, who is the owner of the BFF Bike Shop. They do a lot of their bike support on race weekend, in transition, and out on the course. If you want to get your bike tuned up, I would say call them ahead of time if you want to take advantage before race day. And Coach Joy, who also helped put a lot of the content together, she'll be out there cheering from the sidelines. And I think she's actually jumping in and doing the super sprint divvy race with us as well. So feel free to reach out to any of us if you have any questions. Another new resource that I will be actually actively updating, in addition to looking at questions in the Facebook group and Strava and all that. At the very bottom here, we put another QR code. This is a link tree page. So any of our kind of one-off events, special things going on with sponsors like that meet and greet, the shakeout run, we'll be posting links to a lot of that information in this link tree page as well. So you can stay up to date if you're not on Strava, if you're not on Facebook, you can find some additional information in there. All right. Well, I think that's it for the presentation. I'm going to open it up here to answer some questions. I know we have a bunch of questions in the chat, so I'm going to go through a few of these. And the question is, can you bring your helmet with your bike on Saturday, or does it need to come with you on Sunday morning? Yeah, if you're doing the sprint or the Olympic distance on Sunday, you only drop off your bike, only the bike. You don't even need to, don't leave your water bottles, your helmet, anything, just the bike itself. And then on Sunday, that's when you bring in all the other equipment on race morning. You lay it down next to your bike, you set things up how you want, and then you walk down to the swim start area. So don't leave your helmet on your bike, just your bike on Saturday if you're doing the early bike drop off. Another question here on the super sprint swim. Does the swim distance include the run out from the beach, the shallow part and back in? Yes, the super sprint swim is about 375 meters, and probably about 25 to 50 meters of that is running into the water, and 25 to 50 of it is about running out of the water. So you're really realistically only swimming about 300 meters or so during that super sprint swim distance. Yes, it includes the shallow part of the beach, because that race has a beach entry. You're starting on the beach and you're walking in. It's actually a pretty shallow beach as a whole, so you can almost touch the bottom, almost the whole swim. So that's a nice venue for the super sprint distance. Let's see what else you got here. Yes, the aid stations. There are no aid stations on the bike, correct? Most short course triathlons, some people might see Ironman triathlons, and those do have aid stations on the bike when you do really, really long distances. But most sprint and Olympic distance triathlons in general don't have an aid station. It's just to make it simpler, to avoid the risk of water bottles and people dropping stuff left and right. Especially being on Lakeshore Drive, we need to reopen that highway basically to the city. Can't have a lot of equipment still on the road. So I would highly recommend, if you're doing the sprint distance, have at least one water bottle on your bike. If you're doing the Olympic distance, I recommend having two water bottles on your bike. So bring your own fuel, your own nutrition, anything you want to eat or drink. Have that on your bike and have it ready to go. So as soon as you finish the swim, put your helmet on, put your gear on, and then grab your bike and go. And no, I see the question about, do you need a kickstand for your bike? Nope. You rack it on the rack with the nose of your saddle. And we have some tip videos on that as well that we'll be posting. So I'll give a few more insider and pro tips for how to master your transitions if you want to get really, really quick on your transitions. All right. I think I'm going to end the recording here. I'm going to stay on also to answer a few more questions, but I just want to say thank you to everyone for joining in. Again, feel free, post questions, join the Facebook group, Strava group. There'll be a lot of questions, a lot of chat going on. And on race day, I hope to see you guys out there. I'm doing the triple challenge and the divvy. I'll be doing up to 4 events over the weekend. So I hope to see you guys out there. If you see me, shout my name. I'll give you a nice high five, a good smile, cheer you guys on. And hopefully I'll see you at the start and maybe at the finish for a little celebratory beverage as well. So I'll see you guys out there.
Thanks, Coach.